Welcome back! Since we have looked at Hungary's secret rearmament up to 1938, it's time to discuss the period of open rearmament, which started in that same year and lasted until 1941, when the country entered World War II. An enormous effort was made to catch up to neighboring countries, but time and budget constraints hindered this process, not to mention that neither Germany nor Italy was willing to sell its best equipment. Hungary had to work with what it could buy or manufacture, using its very limited resources and production capacity. In the previous video, I mentioned that the new Huba-1 plan was introduced in March 1938, and within a few months, the Bled Agreement finally allowed Hungary to openly rearm. The existing mixed brigades became army corps, each with 3 infantry brigades. Apart from this, the army wanted 2 cavalry and 2 motorized brigades, border guard forces, and 2 mountain brigades, along with 2 air force brigades. The government announced the GER program, promising to spend 1 billion penge on the armed forces and the economy. The goal was to create an army of 150,000 men, properly equipped and trained, in case war broke out in Europe. At the same time, many other sectors like agriculture, infrastructure, mining, and services would get significant funds, so that the economy would produce the same amount of money that was being spent. Equipment was scarce, so even though manpower was sufficient for such a force, fully equipping the new units remained a dream. The army was nonetheless further expanded when the First Vienna Award gave back parts of Upper Hungary, where a new army corps was set up in 1938. This was repeated in 1940, when the Second Vienna Award returned northern Transylvania with yet another corps, so Hungary now had 9 army corps with 27 brigades. These were not full infantry divisions, each brigade had only 2 infantry regiments instead of 3, along with 1 artillery regiment, but this was still too much for the industry that was busy producing new weapons for the army and for Germany. While the army was frantically trying to expand and ensure the proper training of new officers, NCOs, and enlisted men, covert units were brought out into the open. Police, training, and civilian formations now officially became part of the military. Infantry brigades received more rifles, light and heavy machine guns, along with artillery batteries that were slowly getting modernized versions of old guns, and newly acquired ones like the 105mm German howitzers. The Defense Ministry was looking for more modern equipment to purchase, because even the more mobile cavalry, motorized and bicycle battalions lacked trucks and armor, while the artillery needed more vehicles as well. Selecting the right models, acquiring licenses, and actual production took longer than expected. Delays were the norm. The Botond 1 plan kicked off domestic production of a new truck, the Raba Botond cross-country model, which was designed to transport 12 soldiers and tow the 40mm Bofors gun. It proved to be an excellent design. More than 1,400 were ordered and delivered, but these were not nearly enough to fully equip the army, which planned to requisition 2,000 trucks from the civilian sector in case of mobilization. In 1941, another 1,400 vehicles were ordered. These were delivered within 2 years, but the lack of motorization remained a significant issue. The existing L3 tankets that had been purchased from Italy were distributed among the bicycle battalions, many of which were being converted into tank battalions, as armored vehicles became available. The first such vehicle was the Csaba armored car, based on the Strausser AC-3, with a 20mm gun. Production started in 1940, around 120 would be delivered in the following years. Next on the menu was the Swedish L60 light tank, which was license-built in Hungary, also from 1940. Around 200 were delivered until 1942. It was clear that a medium tank was also needed. After long negotiations with Germany, production rights for the Škoda T21 were purchased. This became the Turán medium tank, but the first such tanks were only delivered in 1942, when it was already obsolete with its 40mm main gun. 230 of them entered service by 1943, with another 50 later on. A second model was developed with the short-barreled 75mm gun. It was introduced as the Turan II and was used on the Eastern Front in 1944. The artillery was quickly expanding, although many models were left over from World War I, and not all of them could be modernized. The 149mm 14M heavy field howitzer was replaced with its new version. More light field howitzers were purchased from Germany, and new heavy guns like the 210mm heavy howitzers were purchased from Italy. There were 4 super heavy 305mm monstrosities from World War I. These were first retired, then pushed into service again in 1942, when Second Army was on the Eastern Front. The anti-aircraft troops were given 40 and 80mm Bofors guns. Each Army Corps had an AA battalion, with each infantry brigade having its own AA battery, with the same 2 models. After 1938, the Royal Hungarian Air Force was also expanding, first with more training aircraft, with some assistance from the Luftwaffe, and from Italy, where a training program had begun. Production of the new WM-21 Solyom reconnaissance plane also began, and while Hungary was looking at both the Me-109 and the Heinkel He-112, around 70 Fiat CR-42s were ordered to fulfill immediate requirements and replace the aging CR-32. To replace the Ju-86 bombers, new Caproni CA-135s were purchased from Italy, but a few Heinkel He-111s were also acquired from Germany for long-range reconnaissance. Since the German partner would not license its best fighter, in December 1939, the Reggiane RE-2000 was purchased instead, but it had to be modified, so it would not be ready until 1942. 5 Savoia Marchetti SM-75 were bought from Italy, initially for civilian use, but these would later transport parachutists. In March 1939, the first actual conflict took place against Slovakia that attempted to interfere with the Hungarian occupation of Ruthenia. Although their planes were inferior, Hungarian formations managed to overwhelm the Slovak squadrons, partly because of better training, but also because the new Slovak Air Force didn't have time to reorganize after the breakup of Czechoslovakia. Confrontation with Romania and mobilization meant that in August 1940, the Air Force had to be ready for action once again. But apart from a few minor incidents, war was avoided. A year later, in 1941, an agreement was finally signed with Germany, according to which Hungarian plants could now produce Messerschmitt Me-109 fighters, and Hungary could keep 1/3 of the planes. However, the country lacked the necessary tools to initiate production. Delivery of such tools took place in the next 2 years, so production was significantly delayed. The river forces did not undergo major changes after 1938, although they did receive 11 newly developed mine layers and a few armored gunboats. These were the most modern ships of the flotilla. In 1940, 3 armies were set up, each with 3 corps and 9 infantry brigades, along with a few independent units. In March, the Mobile Corps was also created, with all available mobile formations, the 2 motorized and the 2 cavalry brigades. These also had bicycle battalions, which made it difficult later on to advance at the same speed. Still, it was the most modern part of the army, and it would perform well in the 1941 Russian campaign. I will talk about Hungary's participation in the war in another video, with special emphasis on Second Army, which was sent to the front in 1942. See you in the next episode.